Yes, ladies and gentlemen, just like a big old festering boil blighting the buttocks of the beautiful game, it is time once again for the worst 120 minutes in all of sports, the Too Many Guys Soccer Puck Show. I'm Mike, and I'm joined, as always, by my faithful producer, Stead. How's it going, sir?
That's going pretty good. It's been a good weekend. Also, I'm not sure you saw, but we had a colossal goal scored in League this weekend, where we had Saint Etienne score a 68-meter goal
I
against
did not.
Metz,
I did not catch
against
that.
FC Metz. Yes, and in fact, the goalkeeper was so far off of his line that it wasn't even a fluke. It was clearly planned by the goal scorer, and they completely botched it and gave up a goal and ended up drawing 1-1 to a team that's trying to be sold right now. So that was my highlight of the weekend. I thought I would intro the show with that. My buddy at work told me about it, and he was like, if you haven't seen it, you need to go see this play. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's clearly on YouTube, and it's pretty funny that they would let that happen.
68-yard goal scored.
68-meter goal, which is about 72 yards.
Yes. A 72-yard chip for a keeper who was taking what can only be described as a good old-fashioned Australian walkabout.
It's true. Yeah.
I will have to watch this, as I have not seen it yet. We are
Wambi Kazri is his name. Wambi Kazri. Yes, check him out. It was a good strike too. It was a very impressive. Like, he clearly said, "Oh, I can score from here," and did.
Maybe he should, if he can make a 68-yard goal, then he might have a shot of replacing a guy. Now, if there was ever a such thing as nominative determinism, I give you Chris Blewett, the kicker for the Washington football team, who had 2 field goals blocked and missed another one.
And the second one that got blocked was because he didn't kick the ball high enough, and he kicked it right into the back of the head of his own player.
No, that was the first one. The second one, the guy actually did jump over the line and get a hand on it. But the first one, yes, he kicked it into his own lineman, so unintentional block. But yeah, nominative determinism. That guy totally blew it. Maybe this guy who scored the 68-meter kick can audition for place kicker for the Washington football team.
We'll sign him.
London Sean joining us, pulling an early shift.
Playing Dr. Doolittle, recognizing the fact that we are the top dogs in London. In fact, we are the top bananas in London. For those in North London, maybe not London, because if Andy's on, he might have something to say about being the top team in London. But yes, no, very good week. Lucky enough to be at the victory against Leeds at the Emirates last week, Tuesday. So lovely coming out of Arsenal Tube Station, bringing back all those memories. The first time I'd walked out of the the Arsenal Tube Station in about 15 years. That brought back a lot of memories. I've got a dog that obviously either wants feeding, killing, or something at the minute. But yes, happy man. Let me attend to the dog. So I shall be 2 seconds and be back with you.
I've been told that I have not done enough of a. Go ahead, Sean. But I've been told in the past that I've not done a good enough job of narrating for the podcast listeners what is actually going on as we do a Zoom show. So for those of you who are listening on the podcast, Sean showed up in his Arsenal jersey with 3 bananas on his head to celebrate the fact that Arsenal were the top bananas, as he put it, in England. I, for my own self, wonder quite a bit whether or not Sean is just representing himself because he is bananas for waking up at 1:30 in the morning to do this podcast. It is also interesting to note the menagerie as it walks through Sean's screen. I've seen a couple of cattails curl in ever so often.
I
And
thought that was the
wondering-
top dog just saying that we're
Yeah,
top dogs in North London now.
Well,
So
the
that's all
dog
that
was
was.
the dog was barking to let us know that they were top dogs in London. Then he also had the bananas on his head. But it is brought to my attention against it that I don't do enough job describing some of the hijinks that go on this, because not everybody watches us on YouTube. Some people listen to the podcast.
Mhm.
And if you're listening to the podcast, some of the stuff that goes on, number one, I would highly recommend, if you like the podcast, watch the Zoom recording of it, because some of the hijinks just defy explanation. But I will do my
Subscribe on
best.
YouTube.
Yes, I will do my best to do a better job of describing some of the things that I see to the best of my ability. Now, we record at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, which means most of the time it is 12:30 a.m. for Sean. Sometimes this week, because of the clocks, it's 1:30. So he's getting up early in the morning, and all sorts of things are going on the sunny south coast, well, the starry south coast of England. Now, Sean, your first trip back to the Emirates in quite a while, since pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID, yeah. The last home game was a loss to Brighton in the latter phases of Unai. I'm just trying to remember if I saw a game that Arteta has managed. I don't think I have, but it was lovely. As I said, coming out of the Arsenal tube station, the old Highbury to my left, which obviously now is flats, and then that walk from the station across the bridge to the Emirates. It's just fantastic. Brings butterflies to your stomach, as they say. Of course, we were drowned out by the drunken Leeds fans chanting their way to the ground, but we didn't really care because we knew we were going to smash them, which we did. And Bob's your uncle.
Mm-hmm. So Stead and I went to a rugby match last weekend.
Oh, okay.
I've been to a baseball match. And those, I believe, those are the only live sporting events that I have personally been to since COVID. Now, here in the States, it's, you almost, to a certain extent, other than the odd mask here and there, forget that COVID had ever happened, right? There's not a lot of people wearing masks. There's nobody really wearing masks once you're sitting in the stands. Despite the reminders that you need to wear masks in the concourses, and certainly in the club level where we were, for the rugby match, it was hit or miss at best. I know this summer when I was up in Philadelphia watching the Phillies play, the mask mandate was removed, so you didn't really need to wear one anyway. So it was kind of like pre-pandemic sort of situation. What is the situation like for the game attending public as far as how COVID or any COVID restrictions once you get into the stadium, on the way to the stadium? How is that going for you guys over there?
Oh, well, obviously it was the first time I was up in London for a little while as well. So what was very odd was that there are big restrictions on the tube, on the underground. So they're asking you and reminding you constantly to wear a mask. And I would say on the whole, most people were adhering to that. I was quite shocked when I got to the stadium because I was lucky enough to be with a friend who's got some posh tickets. So we went through the corporate entrance.
Oh.
And we were not even frisked, asked whether we'd been, vaccinated, straight in the ground. And when we got upstairs, no, couldn't see a single mask within 100 meters. I think the attendance that night would have been around the sort of 50,000 mark.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like as you say, it was almost sitting down. I thought Arsene Wenger was still in charge, and that we were going to put out an invincible winning team. Yeah, it was. It did quite shock me, but yeah, there was little or no reminder of the fact that we've been in a pandemic for 18 months. No.
As far as the atmosphere inside the ground, on TV, the stadiums have seemed quite loud and boisterous.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the case?
Yeah, it was only boisterous because my mate who invited me along was shouting at El Neni for most of the 90 minutes, telling him to bugger off back to Egypt or wherever he comes from. So yeah, that was quite exciting. The noise was, it was pretty loud. I mean, obviously people have been back for a while now, haven't they? That's got to be, I don't know, the 10th home game we've had since post-COVID. So, but there's a very good atmosphere at the Emirates. I had the pleasure of meeting Robbie from Arsenal Fan TV at halftime as well in the corporate posh bit, and what a lovely, lovely man, may I say. So, Robbie, I said I'd give you a shout out on the pod if you're listening. I did tell him who we were and to watch out that we were coming before him and his audience, at which he laughed. But yeah, so the atmosphere was good. I definitely will be back for one of the big games that we've got at home, because we haven't played anyone sort of half decent yet. But I'm looking forward to that. And we've got, although Leno played on Tuesday against Leeds, we now have a new hero in goal, and there's some good chants coming out about Ramsdale at the moment. So I'm looking forward to participating in that. But on the whole, 10 out of 10 experience. I'm delighted. I literally went up for the game, drove back the following morning, and thoroughly enjoyed it.
To be able to do that, Stead.
I know. Absolutely.
You know, one of these days.
Absolutely.
We had to consign ourselves to watching rugby last week.
When you say rugby, was that rugby union?
Rugby union. It was, yes, it was New Zealand versus the USA. It ended up
I will tell you this, Sean. The game was at the worst stadium in the United States for any professional sporting venue. FedEx Field in the and outside of Washington D.C.
Oh yeah,
is hands down the worst stadium. It's just for one of the big outdoor American football clubs and baseball. It's the worst. It's just the worst. Just so you know, instead of actually giving parking passes to individuals, they had you line up in your car, and they had people with iPads who were making you pay $50 to park your car near the stadium.
No,
and there was nobody.
All right, Pedro, actually being polite. Parking. I thought parking was $60.
$50.
Was it 50 or 60?
50. It was $50 on my credit card. Bam. $50. And you could only pay with plastic. They would not accept cash.
But they weren't pre-selling parking permits.
No, they weren't.
That we could find.
No.
So again,
what's the capacity of the stadium?
It is
current capacity is between 75 and 80,000. I'm not sure. 82. Okay. 82, now at its height, it was about 95, but they kept ripping seats out because they couldn't sell them anymore. Right. So it's just
they've taken
a bad stadium.
They've taken out most of the upper bowl in either end zone.
Okay.
So
but what was the score?
104 to 14.
Part. Yes.
Okay. Obviously to the USA.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes, to the USA.
One of the best sporting experiences of my life.
New Zealand did follow that up by going over and absolutely gobsmacking Wales last weekend. And they will be at it again in the autumn test series this Saturday. So amongst Manchester United, Man City, the Manchester Derby, trying to watch some of the Cricket World Cup, I've also got that on Saturday. So I'm going like back to back. And Sean, you have to be proud. England 4-0 in the T20 World Cup. Looking very, very, very good. But really, if I had to do my power rankings, I think Pakistan may have them by a little bit right now in terms of being a little bit better. But if Pakistan's 1, England's like 2, and then probably I would have to say I really like the look of New Zealand. I don't think India have gotten good going, but New Zealand have looked really good. So
they were very unlucky to lose the last final, weren't they?
Well, England was, yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Did we get beat? Oh, we did, didn't we? Yeah. Oh, God. You erase these things from your mind.
Carlos Braithwaite absolutely rocked Ben Stokes in the final inning to beat it for West Indies. So West Indies, karma has caught up with them. It looks like they won't even make the semifinals.
Okay. Did England beat New Zealand in the semi-final last time then?
They beat New Zealand in the finals of the 50 over World Cup.
Oh, the 50 over. Well done.
That was the
That's where I'm getting confused. Okay.
Yeah, the 20 World Cup, the 20 over World Cup. West Indies won. England won the official ODI 50 over World Cup right before you and I met that summer.
It was that summer, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was the summer of 2019.
Yeah. You're going to need to start creating 26-hour days. The amount of sport you try and fit in, right? Aren't you?
Well, right now I have the luxury of my back still bothering me, so I haven't really been working. So I have the ability to watch more and more sports, which I'm taking advantage of to keep up on things, because there's a lot out there.
There is.
So, and we're going to welcome our good friend Carlos in as he looks around to find out where he is. No Gato this evening. I'm sure
she's in the room. Gato will be by, I'm sure. As soon as I start talking, she'll come in here.
And we're going to talk a little bit about Spurs and that in the news that broke today that Uncle Nuno has been let go, but also kind of, the coaching carousel is very much starting to rotate. Instead, and Sean, we had Ole under the gun last week. That one didn't quite happen, but shortly after we reported the podcast midweek, Barcelona dropped more points and Ronald Koeman was gone, precipitating the announcement that Xavi, whose only managerial experience is in Qatar, would be taking over the top job at Barcelona. Nuno gets the chop today, which means that now Antonio Conte, who up until last week was rumored to be taking over the Manchester United job, looks to be front of the launch queue to take over for Spurs, who was the guy that they wanted. Then they changed their mind and they wanted another Italian, Paulo Fonseca, former manager of Roma, who may now go to Newcastle. And then they didn't get that Italian, so then they went to Gattuso. They didn't get that Italian, so they settled on Nuno, who just got fired. So, yeah.
But, I thought Fonseca's Portuguese and scores with ease. He's not Italian, is he?
I don't know. I guess he might be. He was managing in Italy.
He was managing in Italy. You're right. Yes.
Yes, and he bears a striking resemblance. He bore a striking resemblance in that Europa League match last year against Manchester United. He looked almost exactly like Sylvester Stallone in Rocky. He had the coat on, the
before
hat.
or after the bout?
Before the bout.
Okay.
Yeah, he looked dead like Sly Stallone in Rocky last year. I just wanted to keep screaming every time I saw him on TV, Adrian! Like, maybe he got into the wrong sport. Maybe rather than trying to manage Roma and getting fired after you take him to a European semifinal and get fired for Jose Mourinho, he could have taken up boxing. So, Los, we talked about it when he got the job, that he wasn't their first choice and that there were going to be some struggles. Apparently the struggles were too much, and Uncle Nuno is one for the history books.
Well, NES went the way of the NES and is no longer. But that's for those that don't get the cryptic acronym. We got Nuno Espirito Santo and Nintendo Entertainment System. But anyway, Mike, I want to say first off, before we get going on this, I do dig the hat. That's flipping awesome. I dig it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
I'm
Army
doing
beat Navy.
Yes, I'm doing two things that I do rep Army quite a bit on the show, but I'm actually doing something quite different today. And I got my DC sweatshirt on. I don't normally represent the area that I live.
Yeah, I'm not too thrilled about that, but the hat looks great.
It is a good looking hat, though.
Well, so yes, we wanted Antonio Conte back in the summer. He had this list of demands, and after a while, Levy said, "Enough of this nonsense. We're done with you," and moved on. And right, Nuno wasn't the first choice. He was, I think, the third choice, and then came around to be the fifth choice again, or something like that. Is because they talked about Nuno for a little bit first off, and then they said, "Well, we pursue these other coaches," and then they finally came back to Nuno after everyone else turned him down. So Nuno served his purpose. He held the reins for 10 matches. Didn't do as well as we had hoped. To be honest, the higher ups, the board at Tottenham Hotspur, really liked Nuno's long-term plan. Problem is, the fans are very short-term right now. We're just seeing too much. It's looking too much like the 1990s, and we don't want anything to do with that. So I was talking to my brother about that. I said, "Yeah, we don't want to go back to the 1990s," and I said maybe Manchester United and Arsenal do, but not we aren't interested in doing that. And then my brother chimed in with it. "Hey, Newcastle like to go back to the 90s too." I said, "Okay, yeah, sure." And he says, "And how about Nottingham Forest?" I'm like, "Yeah, I bet they like to go back to the 90s. Yeah, I bet they would." But yeah, my brother's a Newcastle supporter, and so he was kind of surprised by what happened. I wasn't. I've been reading all the tweets and all the blurbs, and the fans just have had enough waiting. They want success now. I guess it's when you get to the UEFA Champions League final and you fall a little short, you expect to still be at the same level the next year, and it just seems to be tailing off. And nothing's really been done big time to try and improve the club. We've got some minor improvements here and there. We made some strides in picking up Emerson Royale. We got Reguilon and Romero in the back. We still got Dyer. We still got Delhi, which is a surprise, to be honest. I thought he would have been gone long ago. But especially under Mourinho, I thought Mourinho would have gotten rid of Delhi. But I guess maybe Levy wants to hold on to him for a little longer. That's all well and good. Kane stuck around because Levy's playing hardball. And instead of using the Kane money to go ahead and start a little spending spree and get some other quality players in and just make a solid team, even more so than what we have now, he decided to hold on to Kane and play hardball. So we got stuck, and Nuno actually got stuck with the whole Kane fiasco, and that's not even really his fault, because it just happened on his watch, and it was even before he got there. It was already a pretty much a done deal that Kane was going to stick around. So I'm not sure that Nuno had the locker room. It sure sounds like he didn't have the locker room. Like the players weren't very enthralled with his technique, his coaching style, and just they didn't buy into it. And you could see it on the field. They just weren't playing with any fear. I'm at a loss for words. They
didn't look excited to play. They
weren't excited to play. They just had no joy. They just so, and they were winning games initially, albeit 1-0. They were winning games and found themselves at the top of the table, and they're like, "Whoa, look at where we're at." And then they said, "Oh, wait a minute, yeah, we aren't that good a team, are we?" And so they just been tailing off, and now we're like a 7th or 8th in the table. It's been a really strange season with ups and downs, and I'm wondering if Conte can go ahead and get us to ignite the firepower we have, that I know we have with this particular team. He likes to play a 3-5-2. I mean, that's one of the most successful managers with a 3-5-2. But that calls for strong defense. You got 3 guys in the back. You got 2 guys who go from box to box, and you have your 3 midfielders feeding the 2 guys up front. So that's great if all the pieces are in place. Now, he's been given some assurances that there will be money for transfers, that he will get the salary that he is commanding, which I think is 20 million. I'm not sure if that's pounds or euros, but
20 million pounds, 20 million euros, I would imagine.
Yeah, but he has all the I's and T's dotted and crossed. Everything that he wanted last summer, and Levy said, "No way, Jose, I'm out," or "No way, Jose, I'm out." And
I see what you did there.
Yeah, but it just and now Levy's like, well, you know what? Hey, remember what we talked about last summer? Yeah, let's do that. And Conte's like, I'm here. I'm your man. He's already in London, and he's already apparently agreed to terms. And it's I wouldn't be surprised if I wake up tomorrow morning.
He popped in to have a cup of tea with Roman Abramovich on his way to White Hart Lane, apparently.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because we know they're the best of friends.
We're best of friends. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow morning we hear that it's a done deal, that the paperwork's been signed and he is the new manager of Spurs.
Hey, we love it on the other side of North London. This is going to be the biggest car crash in the history of management appointments.
He does have a track record of success in the Premier League. He also does have a track record of kind of similar to Jose, but not necessarily to the same extent, of burning down the bridge and everything else as he gets there. So it's an interesting appointment, but it was one that they wanted to make last summer.
I tell you what, all those Spurs players are going to want Nuno back next week as soon as Conte.
They might want him back by Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah. No, I'm not running 100 miles.
But you know, there's something to be said for that. I mean, Pochettino had them doing 2-a-days, and they were pretty fit, and they weren't gassing out at the end of the first half or in the middle of the second half. They were going, full 90 and being able to stay competitive the whole time. And so there's something to building up the stamina to be able to, to look fresh even in the 89th and 90th minute. So I would welcome it. Run them. Let's go. Do the Bills.
But especially if you're playing in Europe, I really think that is part of, I don't want to say the resurgence of Arsenal, but I think Arsenal is able to win a bit more frequently, mainly because of the fact that they're not gassed out. So if you look at clubs that are playing this really, really heavy schedule, making sure you have the wind is extraordinarily important. And yeah, you saw that with Spurs a few years ago. That team is in a, when you see them in the 75th and 80th minute, and it looks like it's the 30th minute, there's something to be said about strong physical conditioning. And I know a lot of soccer players don't like that type of physical training, but it is extraordinarily important. It's extraordinarily important. It's what keeps you healthy, and it's what keeps those games close and gives you a chance to win down the stretch. So, yeah, I mean, say what you want about Pochettino, man. That team, I mean, when he left, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, okay, good. I'm tired of seeing that team run laps around the squad that I support. So there's something to be said to that. So hopefully they can do that again, because that's not, you have to get the wind in there. I mean, you're just seeing it. I mean, I see that our dear friend Larry has just joined us, and you see, man, fatigue is a real thing. I mean, these teams are looking tired. They are.
And it's funny because we've talked about a lot of managers have talked about, fitness and the need to be physically fit and endurance. Alex Ferguson so famously talked about the need to be able to play 90 plus minutes and how, United would win games in Fergie time because they were just in better shape than everybody else.
Park Ji-sung is a prime example of that. Yeah.
You know, I also wonder about the fact that, you know, when we remember Wolves from 2-3 years ago, Stead, and when we first you and I first fell in love with Nuno, and when we really thought about how great a manager he was and said that he's primed for this to move up and to take another gig, it had to do with the fact that Wolves played a full 90-minute game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right. And so
I'm still here. My camera froze again. I don't understand why, but
no
I'm
problem.
Still here.
No problem. No problem.
We want you to stay on and chime in.
I would like to say this match was kind of amusing because in our own thread, we were talking about the game upcoming Spurs and Man United, and I mentioned that we're calling it El Sacico. Meaning whoever loses is the one who gets the sack. And a lot of people in the thread were like, "Wait a minute, is Nuno really on the hot seat?" I'm like, "Well, if it ain't hot, it's very, very warm." And it turns out that was the case. And here's the thing too. It's almost like the Spurs fans that I hang out with. They're almost glad that we lost to Man U, so Nuno could get out and we get Conte, and that Manchester United didn't get them. So that was another take on it, that they can go ahead and still keep Ole at the helm there, and so they'll wallow in mediocrity and that, you know, for the next you know, however long they can keep Ole. But
yeah, thanks for that. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. No problem. Hey, you know,
did you guys already touch
trade-off
base on this? Do you think that United would have went after Conte?
Yes, they were going after Conte. I think they hedged their bets a little bit because there was some disagreement. We talked about that last week, the fact that there was some disagreement within the board that they needed to, but it became very apparent by Monday as the news started to break that they weren't going to get Conte, that there was a division in the board over not whether to fire Ole, but whether or not to hire Conte, because the feeling being that, you know, is Conte really the guy that we think is going to be take us forward, or are we going to end up in a situation at Manchester United where, you know, Conte is going to be there for 18, 20 months, 24 months, and then, you know, this time a year, the end of next season, we're going to be right back where we were, right back on the managerial merry-go-round. You know, is it worth it to just stick and stay with Ole until things get absolutely, completely untenable? And that way in the summer, you can maybe take a run at a manager like Pochettino, who you missed on the first time around, or somebody who you
he needs to stay at PSG until City needs someone in 2023.
Okay, there you go. Yeah,
Poch is going to be hot. He's going to be hot.
I didn't mean to cut you off there, Los. Sorry.
No, not a problem.
Not a problem. But so welcome, Larry, coming in strong with questions already, and resplendent in the Hibernian kit this evening.
I figured they didn't lose this weekend because their game was postponed, so I could wear it for wear it until Wednesday whenever they continue their losing streak to Ross County.
So
Ross County's at the bottom of the table too.
Hey, yeah. You've seen the way that Iberians been playing. So,
but so Los, we'll get you out on this. How do you expect that Conte is going to bet in, given that, you know, I guess to a certain extent, Spurs finally got their man. Now they're going to pay a pretty euro for him. I think the release clause for Nuno was 14 million.
Correct.
You already paid a sum. I don't know whether the payments are up and over because they got jobs to Jose and Pochettino.
Jose's done. We're not paying him anymore.
Okay, and I imagine the same is true with Poch.
Probably. I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to look at that one up.
But still, that's probably got to be upwards of 25 million pounds in dead manager that you've paid out in the last couple of years. Plus, now you're going to be giving Conte a salary of about 20 million euros. That's a lot of money spent on managers.
It's kind of amusing, though. I mean, Levy is always trying to be tight with the pocketbook. And the problem with that is you end up paying more in the long run. So maybe, loosen up the purse strings just a little bit to get the guy we want here. And then now loosen up the purse strings for the transfer period upcoming so Conte can get the players that he wants to get the team that he wants to field, that sort of thing. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing a more attacking style, reminiscent of some of the stuff I saw under Pochettino. There was no real attacking style under Mourinho. We had the counter. It was always the counter, and it was successful for a little bit. And then with Nuno, we had a little bit different approach, a little more attack, but still ultra defensive recently. And it just hasn't, and nothing's been firing up front. And, they got two of the most electric players in the Premier League up front. You got Heung-min Son and you got Harry Kane. And last year they set a record for most goals collaborating on in the Premier League. And they continue to add to that, and they're close to the all-time record. I think they just need another one or two collaborations and they'll have that. But it's we got the firepower. We just need I need somebody who believes in the team to say, hey, let's go out and get them. Let's go pressure them. Let's go run for a full 90, and let's go ahead and get out there and score some goals.
So, do they have the personnel to play that 3-5-2?
That's a great question. That's an excellent question. I think we're a really strong center.
Okay, I think we just lost Los. So hopefully he'll be able to join us. If not, we thank him for joining us. Larry, how goes it, my friend?
Oh, it goes, brother. How about you guys?
We're doing all right. We're doing all right.
You back to school now?
No, not quite yet. It'll
Not
be
yet.
a while. It'll be a while for me. But yeah, ever since you started doing the show, the jersey collection just seems to be growing and growing.
Well, I have a bunch of them that I just went crazy on one of those websites one time, like buy 15, get one free, one of those. So, but I did just add this one, and I like this guy a lot. It's a nice fit.
It actually is a nice jersey.
It's pretty. It's real pretty.
I just looked it up. It's got the map of Edinburgh on it. You can kind of see it. It's got the map of Edinburgh on it. And we know Cam won't be too mad at it because the Hibs and Celtic are Hibs are Edinburgh's version of Celtic. So yeah, Manchester City hit a speed bump this weekend. Well, Crystal Palace side speed bump. How much of that is just one of those? It's just one of those afternoons, and everything that could go wrong went wrong.
I'm hoping, and I do believe that's what it is. I mean, it's tough. I mean, playing 10 men for the whole second half, even though they still dominated possession, you just saw Crystal Palace just really box in and defend. They really didn't get. They played well. I'm hoping that it's just one of those blips. But again, these blips are what's going to cost City a Premier League. The draw to Southampton, the loss to Crystal Palace. They got lucky that Liverpool ended up tying Brighton, but I mean, it's really, I know it's early, but I really believe it's Chelsea's title to lose at this point, because now they're, City can't drop any more to teams that they shouldn't be dropping to. And it's a long, and they still got, what did they play? 11 games now.
I think it's 10 or 11. 10.
They still got plenty of games left for them. You can look at it, they got plenty of games left to tie to bring it back, and then plenty of games to drop more points on. So, it's I don't want to say I'm I got crushed when I said this before, but if they're going to lose, I'm glad that they lost in the Carabao. I'm not going to get into who they lost to again, like we did on the chat there, but it's one of the, I don't ever like them losing, but it's early it's going to save them some games. You know what I mean? They're always fighting on four fronts. I don't want them to lose, but I think it's beneficial considering just how many games these guys play.
We've talked about that, Stead, before, how, Pep's ardent desire to compete on every conceivable front always seems to hamper City at the end of the year as those games just pile up.
I was quite surprised with the lineup that he had out there, because it was still, they're so deep, but they had a strong lineup. But I would have liked to have seen them go with more younger guys.
He likes to get into those finals.
But yeah, you're right. He does that on all four fronts. He's always trying to have a very strong team, unless they're playing like a League One team. He's putting out their 3 or 4 of their regular starters and their bench players that could start on, 19 of the other 20 Premier League teams.
And so maybe the good news is I don't think it's anything more than just, I believe firmly that Pep would love to pull an Invincible and win a quadruple in the same season, just so that he can go down as the greatest manager ever in Premier League history. To have both of those records at the same time, I just don't think that now that's possible. I can't see a team going unbeaten and winning all 4 trophies. Yeah. I think we've seen City, we've seen Liverpool both go through the season and only lose, I believe, once. I just don't believe that you can do that as easily. So that being said, maybe it is for the best, but you're going to lose a game here or there. It's good that they get it out of the way. Then they follow that up, dropping the points to Crystal Palace. So we could almost talk about something resembling a losing streak for the mighty City. Not something that you guys have had to deal with since he got there, but
I don't know if you guys saw that Pep said he plans on taking a full reaction and revenge out on Club Brugge this week. Hopefully it goes that way where they end up blowing them out and kind of puts this to rest. But again, they've got Man U coming up, and these are the games that Man U. I would not be shocked if Man U beats City.
Man U wins. Yeah, but you can't get mad at that West Ham loss, though. Look, we've seen West Ham is legit. Whether we want to admit it or not, they are legit.
We're trying to get Andy Hammer back on.
Yeah, but I'll tell you this about Andy. Andy's going to come on at some point soon. For his particular profession of sports writing, Mondays are hectic.
Oh yes,
very very hectic.
He's got Monday night,
especially
football.
with covering, and he covers college football, so he's got to get a lot in by this day. So hopefully we can get our one professional sports writer back on quickly. I spoke with his parents. He says hello to everyone. He's looking forward to coming back on as soon as he can. But he's anxious to get on and talk about West Ham, and he's hoping that they can keep their winning ways until he has a chance to come back on the show.
Yeah, and like you said, that they are a legit team. But they're legit. Last 2 seasons,
they're legit. Yeah, those boys can play.
Yeah, I mean, they played well. I watched start to finish of that game, and it was something that they deserved to win it. I hated the way it went to penalties and to lose in penalties, you know what I mean? But, that they played well, and there's not much more you can say about it.
I think that's the team that nobody wants to play them in that. They don't want to play West Ham.
I believe that's.
I'm so glad we drew Sunderland. I'll put it that way, as you pointed out, London Sean.
Hey, look, they've now taken out both Manchester teams. In consecutive rounds. So this may
Spurs, and then they got Spurs next. So actually they cannot.
I would not want to play West Ham. I feel like they're destined to win some silverware this year. I don't know why I feel that way, but I think they're going to win something.
If you're a West Ham supporter, even if they don't win the trophy itself, if they just get into the semifinals, and some of the the holders, the favorites, they're out. It suddenly becomes much more open. And you've got to determine how much other teams. It's a great tournament to win, as Jose said, because it's the one tournament early in the season that can guarantee you European football pretty much by Valentine's Day, right? Depending on when the final is, so by February, that you've got, but I don't believe it is automatic into, I think the Carabao Cup only gets you into the Conference League.
I think so, yeah.
This year. But if you're West Ham and you can guarantee your spot, yourself a spot in the Conference League before,
Oh, that's a win for them. Absolutely.
Yeah, before
absolutely.
Before March, before spring, before the vernal equinox, then hey, that is an absolute total win.
Especially this season when they're looking like they're probably going to win their group in Europa League. So they're playing with house money if they win their group.
That's another thing. We said they're a legit team. Look, Brighton is another one that's not going away. I
hate Brighton. I can't. I'm so mad.
I didn't have a chance to talk about that game, but I'll tell you what, I was impressed. I mean, City ended up winning 4-1, but it was a game where I was like, I can see why. I don't know why they're playing. Potter's just got them, playing well right now, but they look like a completely different team, and they might end up in 14th, 15th by the end of the year. But right now, they're playing as a different team, and just with confidence. I feel like they're just something they haven't had.
Yeah, they're not getting outplayed either, because you could easily see them folding 2 years ago after going down the way they did to Liverpool, and to fight the way they did to come back in that game was impressive. Yep. Even if I hate that club.
Potter is. I mean, I don't know if it's the same over there, Sean, but Graham Potter is like the hottest name amongst managers.
Hey, he's the new Eddie Howe. He is.
The other thing is
maybe even more so. Maybe even better. Yeah.
I want to talk about him because I think this is one that kind of ties that conversation we were having about Nuno together, and Graham Potter is the hot name right now. There are rumors that, and I was reading it, one of the headlines, I think it was The Guardian, talking about Aston Villa needing to can Dean Smith to keep all the progress that they had made under Dean Smith. So the only way that we've made so much progress under Dean Smith that we have to fire him.
Blows it up.
Yeah. They had a great season last season where they kept the momentum. Remember, they barely finished out. They barely made the Great Escape in 1920. He keeps the momentum. Jack Grealish has a great year. Kicks them up. They finish 11th last year. Now they're down in 15th, having lost 4 on the trot, I think. Only 3 wins on the season. They got rid of Grealish. They did get some pieces in. You, Stead, Sean, Rob, I believe, too. We all talked about this at the beginning of the season. We all had differing opinions on whether or not Villa was going to be any good. I believe you both thought that they had done enough adding to the team to make them good. You like a lot of people like the pieces that they brought in. I wasn't so sold on them. I thought that they might be a 15th place team. Is there a way that we believe like you can be a victim of your own success? Nuno did so much with Wolves that he became a victim of his own success. Dean Smith, the same way. And if that's the case, if you're Graham Potter, do you just cash out now, move the first chance you get? Because if you stick at Brighton, the only thing that's going to end up happening is that you're destined to get fired at some point in time. Once, they'll get up to 10th place, they'll be in the top half. They see the table this year competing for Europe, but it's Brighton. They're not going to be a team that's going to can hold on to that. And the minute the results tend to start to dip, you're out the door. What do you think?
I think if he gets a phone call, I think he's gone. And if I were him, I would do it. I mean, he probably realizes I'm at Brighton, and if I get another call from somewhere else, I think he's gone, and it would be the right move for him too.
What do you think, Sean?
Well, obviously, I don't know. I don't know Graham, but I do know his distant cousin Harry. Who tells me that he tells me that
I thought it was his nephew.
Graham is is probably his nephew, actually. Yeah. He is an ambitious manager. If you go back to when he went to Ostersund, I mean, the incredible bit about that story is that there wasn't even a football club. I mean, he started the football club. It's literally only 10 years old. So 8 years into their existence, they go and beat Arsenal at the Emirates. So, quite an astonishing story there. And he did particularly well at Swansea. He just seems a very calm sort of character, doesn't he? And sorry, Larry, your comment about if he gets a phone call, he'll run off. I don't think he will. The guy who owns Brighton is a very successful businessman, well known in the area. I went to university in Brighton, so I know we've got a few Brighton haters there, but I was lucky enough to follow them in '85 when they got through to the FA Cup final. So Brighton have always had a solid piece of my heart, as they say, and I followed them. I don't think he'll go. He was sold the idea of a 5-year project and established Brighton as a top 10 team in the Premier League. And let's assume he's getting paid a couple of million a year. I think that's fairly solid in terms of, one, he looks as though he's on trajectory to do that. The big thing for them, they did a very good deal with Ben White, with us, to get the 50 mil. They've got 3 other players that are top players. That's Lamptey, who's only just got back, the right back, who is ex-Chelsea.
He looks strong against City. I was very impressed.
Yeah, he's a top player, and it was a shame that he got injured last year. Basuma, he's no longer a mystery. He had a great season last season. There's obviously some talk about that he was the Brighton player that got arrested recently for some woman put in some complaint about, obviously, supposedly the Brighton player involved is Basuma, but that will come out in the press. And they've also got another guy in midfield whose name I can't pronounce, who scored at the weekend. So if they can keep hold of those players, then I think they can move onwards and upwards. It's whether or not Lallana and Welbeck can stay fit over the season, because their injury records are not great. I mean, they're a big problem, Brighton. If they had a striker, they'd be very dangerous. But I don't think that Mopé is up to the required standards of getting you 10, 15 goals.
Is that Wepu that you're talking about, the midfielder?
Who?
Wepu.
Yeah, Wepu. Yeah, he's good as well.
Yeah.
So but no, I don't. It's only a surprise because Brighton are new to the Prem, and people are sort of trying to get their heads around who this team is. But it's a very well-run club, very, very well-supported club down there. They're sort of similar to Newcastle. There's only one team in the city, so to speak, and they have the potential to get bigger because they've now built a new railway line which gets you from Brighton to London in 30 minutes. So there's going to be a lot of Londoners moving south, and that could potentially increase the.
And they've said that the South Coast is rather nice this time.
Yeah. Oh, Brighton's lovely. Brighton's a great town.
Okay.
I know you hate the football team, Stead, but it's a lovely town.
I've actually been to Brighton. It is beautiful.
Have you?
It's beautiful. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's very nice. The only reason why I hate the club is because that game where Bert Leno got injured and Mopé came out of his mouth. I didn't appreciate that at all. So ever since then, I'm like, screw you guys. But once Arsenal sell Leno, I probably won't hate them anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's obvious that Mopé is probably not going to be their main goal scorer moving forward.
No.
Yeah.
So I can't remember where I put Brighton, but I certainly didn't put them to get relegated before the season starts.
I think I did, and I'm probably, which is probably the reason why I'm in 7th place in the top 7. So I'm probably going to be relegated.
How those standings work, so I don't know where I put them.
Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter until like 2 specific dates that it matters.
It doesn't matter right now, and even if you did know, it still doesn't matter because I swear Los just makes it up as he's going along, and nobody knows what the mathematical equation that he uses is. He's our resident statistician, and he just accept that Los makes it up every week.
Okay with that.
And as long as he likes you and your bribes are on time, you'll stay up. That's when you know that you just haven't been paying what you're supposed to. All right, the check's in the mail. I'm going to go ahead and welcome in our good friend Byron Robb. How goes it, sir?
Goes pretty good. How about yourselves?
Oh, can't
We
complain.
love Borussia Mönchengladbach.
Mhm.
Of course you do.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What was that?
You know, every once in a while, a team will do everything wrong and the other team will do everything right. And that's what happened. It was a shellacking, a spanking, a whooping of epic proportions. And I'm sad mostly because the DFB Pokal is my favorite competition, and obviously Champions League is prestigious, but the Pokal is my favorite trophy. And like I have dreams about watching Bayern win the Pokal in Berlin at the Olympic Stadion. And so 2 years in a row, early exit. We knew this was going to be a problem match because Gladbach is just they're, no matter how bad they are in the season, they always play Bayern tough. It's just really disappointing, but I'm honestly not shocked. I mean, I'm shocked by the scoreline, but I'm not shocked by the result, honestly. I mean, I thought they had an excellent chance to win it, but it happens, man. It's the way she goes. What are you gonna do?
We talked about this with Larry before. Every once in a while, you just have that game where everything just doesn't go right, and it's a bump in the road. Everybody's going to lose at some point in the season. City lost theirs. We don't think that it's a trend or anything like that, and they certainly went out this weekend and proved that it wasn't, and got back to winning ways in the Bundesliga very quickly. We also talked about the fact that, when you're competing on multiple fronts, it just all it serves to do is add additional games, right? In a way, could the fact that they don't have to make a lengthy Pokal run be beneficial for a team that's going to have designs on, and it looks like they're getting a stranglehold on the Bundesliga, and they could have a serious stranglehold on it before the winter break. Could this put them in a position where they could focus more of their attention now on making a likely run in the Champions League? I know it's been a whopping, year since they won it, but Bayern's impatient when it comes to getting up there amongst the upper echelons. They want those additional numbers on the sides on their sleeves to say that they've won this thing. And start breaking some of those ties.
The Bayern way is to win everything. We want everything. The fans we're greedy. When people want to talk about Bayern have won 10 league titles in a row, we're like, fine, we want more. We want everything. We suffocate everybody, and because we want the silverware. And I'll tell you right now, nobody on that squad is happy that they're going to get a break during some of the weeks in the middle of the week. They want to play. There was a point in time where when they were going for the Club World Cup, that they thought about not going. They were like, do you really want to play? Because it was a weird schedule, and the players were like, yeah, we'll play. We want to win everything. I don't care if I only get 2 days off and then I had to get back. No, they want everything. So it's a disappointment. I mean, will it help? Yeah, but I guess the one thing is, with the Pokal, it's a simple one match. There's no replays. There's no there's no home and away fixtures at all. So it wasn't that much of a hindrance. And the squad's deep enough they can do it. So it wasn't. I mean, will it help? Sure, I guess, but at least for players like Joshua Kimmich, who just plays every minute. He doesn't stay on the bench at all. So I feel like players like that are going to get run to the ground a little bit, but they need to be told like not to play. And one of the ways to do that is not to have a competition to play for. So it will be beneficial from a minutes point of view, from an injury point of view, but the players don't feel that way. They wanted to win. They wanted to play everything. And, they love the competition. They want to play Berlin too, of course.
So elsewhere in Germany, what should we be paying attention to?
Y'all need to look at Freiburg. They're scaring me. I mean, they're in third place right now. I believe it's like something like 22 points. Yeah, 22 points. Then the next team, which is Leverkusen, is on 17. Freiburg still continue to not give up goals at all. They've only given up 7 in 10 matches. And they're only 3 points away from the top. I mean, but guess who they play next week?
They haven't lost yet. Freiburg.
Yeah, they might not have.
No, they're 6.
They're
6-4-0.
6-4-0.
Wow. Okay.
But you know who they play next week?
Bayern.
Bayern. So
Is this another Leverkusen test where they come up there in second and they get stomped?
They might
by
get
15-0.
They might get stomped. But the difference with Leverkusen and Freiburg is Leverkusen has weapons and they want to play attacking football, right? So they want to go up and down the pitch and really take it to Bayern. The problem is you do that, you expose yourself, and Bayern are just so good enough that they will just take you apart. Freiburg is a different story. They play usually in the 4-4-2. They have great defenders in Gunther and Schallerbach, who are left back and center back respectively. If you play a fantasy Bundesliga, they're awesome to have. They're giving you massive points, but they just don't give up goals at all. They don't give up any easy chances. Less than half their goals are from set pieces. I think it's like 5 of them are from set pieces. So they're going to make Bayern work through the channels and try to play over the top a little bit, but it's going to be interesting, and it would not shock me if like this game's a 1-0, honestly. I think Bayern will win it, but 1-0 is a possibility. But the next 3 out of the next 4 matches are against Bayern, Frankfurt, and Gladbach. So after Gladbach, we will see where they are. But there's a little bit of cushion between them and Leverkusen, right? So for all we know, even after that stretch, they can still be in third. So they're an interesting team to watch. This is crazy, like honestly. But yeah, look out for Freiburg.
Leipzig is still, they're starting to make some moves. Jesse Marsch has started to put together a unbeaten streak in the league, but still a ways down the table. At this point, 10 points off of Bayern in first, but only 1 point off of Mainz in fifth. Has the seat started to cool any under Jesse Marsch's pants?
I think it's going to depend on whether they make Europa League or not. Though I will tell you that they blew a chance to get up into the Champions League spot by giving up a 94th minute goal to Frankfurt. They drew 1-1. They left 2 points there. I know they were on the road, but still, and they barely beat a 4th division side in the Pokal in the middle of the week. So they're teetering. We don't know. They could go either way. The seat is warm. There is a heating pad there. Whether they turn it up or not is a different story. There's still a lot of football to go, but they got some competition coming up. They got Dortmund coming up. They got Hoffenheim and they got Leverkusen, and not to mention also
the Champions League.
And you got Champions League with PSG and Club Brugge, right? So mix all that together, and it could go bad really quickly, or they stabilize themselves. Maybe the seat warmers gets turned down a notch or two. But yeah, no, this is so look, if they get those 2 points, they could have got all the way to 4th place. That's how compressed the schedule is. I mean the table is.
Yeah, there's a big logjam in between. There's a lot, as you said, there's some separation in between Bayern, Borussia, and Freiburg at the top of the table, and then Leverkusen all the way down to Köln in 11th. We're only talking about 4 points. So you're just 2 games away from being towards the bottom of the table. There's a little bit, and there's some growing separation in between Greuther Fürth and Armenia in the relegation spots, and Augsburg, who's in the transfer spot right now.
Mhm.
So are we setting up like, it seems like the interesting stuff, relegation, the champion in the Bundesliga might be settled pretty early this season, and then it's just going to be around about jockeying in the midfield. Is that even good for the Bundesliga as they seek to get a foothold on U.S. viewers?
I mean, the thing with the U.S. is obviously, you know, we're so used to parity with the other sports, right? We like to see, you know, different champions here and there, especially, you know, especially with the biggest sport being the NFL. And Bayern winning everything is, you know, they're going to be like, well, why are we watching this league? But I think if you watch the games, if you watch a mid-table Bundesliga game, there's really great storylines. There's great competition. There's a lot of back and forth. If you're a fan of the sport, you're a fan of the atmosphere on TV, you know, it comes across really well, especially now that fans are starting to come back in the stands. Like, look, the Bayern Union Berlin game was amazing. You know, the stadium could only fill 19,000 people, but it was rocking. It was the first day back with full fans, and it was a beautiful sight to see. And it was attacking football too, even though Bayern won 5-2. You know, Union made Bayern sweat. You know, so just because, you know, Bayern are at the top doesn't mean anybody they play won't be good matches. They're good quality matches. And as we saw midweek, you know, a team like Gladbach, who's not even in a European spot, can definitely, you know, put a bunch of points on the board against a Bayern. So to me, it's a great league. It's a fantastic league. It's a fun league. It's a high scoring league, and it's a loud league. And it's also an accessible league now on ESPN. The problem is that now you're competing with La Liga, so people remember the Barcelonas and Messi there, and Ronaldo over Real Madrid, along with all their other Galacticos. So there is an appeal there, on a worldwide appeal. So now they're competing for eyeballs there. But you know, and honestly, the German league doesn't make a ton of money on the U.S. rights deal. And honestly, whether the Americans like it or not, they don't care. They love their league. They love going to the matches, and they love going to the matches for a cheap price. So that's what's important to them.
All right. Well, we're going to have you hang on because we're going to switch gears in a little bit and talk some MLS. But I want to go ahead and bring our good friend Chelsea Mike in. Another week, another win for Chelsea. So let's talk some lower league stuff.
I love it. Like, if we're not firing our manager, I have no place on this show at all. Like, that's why I do the lower leagues, because otherwise, what else is there to talk about? Chelsea win again. Who cares?
What I mean, but it's so kind of systemic with them. Almost, it just keeps churning along, and there's really, what do you want to talk about with them? What do you mean?
I don't have much to say, you know, except to say that if you look at that game and what Newcastle tried to do, you kind of saw why Newcastle was a better team than Norwich the week before, because they engaged in the exact same defensive philosophy. Newcastle was way more successful at it, and were able to keep Chelsea off the board for the first half and into the second period. But at the end, yes, Chelsea are just too good. You know, we're scoring goals with our secondary unit. You know, Werner didn't play. Of course, Lukaku is out for a while. Mason Mount was ill. So,
Has
you know,
Romelu Lukaku scored since the first 3 goals of this, like early in the season? Has he scored since then?
it's been a while since
Yeah.
Romelu Lukaku has scored.
That's
It has been.
kind of, but
He's
that's
scored since then, but
that's kind of
Um,
that is Romelu Lukaku to a certain extent. You know, he's been throughout his career a bit of a streak scorer,
Streaky,
especially in the Premier League. He'll get hot and he'll bang him in for about a month or so, and then he might get cold as teams figure out a little bit about his tendencies and things.
Mhm.
It is going to be how he adjusts in so many ways back to the Premier League. He was able to be, I don't want to make it sound like he was just physical. Like the first time around, he was a bit of a flat track bully. He could just, he beat you with it. He's surprisingly quick for his size, even though he got even bigger when he went to Manchester United. And he kind of got to be a one-trick pony for a little bit when he did add some different elements to his game at Inter Milan. His passing developed. He added a few more finesse moves and things like that, but he still did rely a lot when I would watch him play in Italy and in the Europa League on his physicality. It was the ability to get into those moves just because of his size and his strength. He was in a lot better shape than he was at Manchester United. He was able to move. He lost some weight. He put on some muscle. He became a better technical player. But I think now, again, he's adjusting back to the speed and the physicality of the Premier League and how they were playing him. So
right.
is he going to, it's like a baseball pitcher, Mike. You know, you throw that change up for so long, and then guys start to pick up a couple of clues on it, and then how can you hide it the next time?
Right. Yeah, no, and it is. And he was, you know, I mean, his streak extended from last year at Inter through the summer, through the international games, into the beginning of the year at Chelsea. He's injured now, and you know what? Frankly, they just don't need him. They're playing Malmo in the Champions League this week. They're playing Burnley at the weekend. Malmo, by the way, the Burnley of the Champions League. And then it's international break. So yeah, let him rest.
I don't know. What scares me about Chelsea is that Chelsea's winning the way they are, and Reece James is your leading scorer at 4 goals. Like that just shows you that they have the pieces to just pull out and plug in, and it's going to be difficult. It's a difficult
out. Chilwell recently have been just excellent coming out of the wings and scoring goals.
Yeah.
And you know, and Lukaku hasn't been there for a while, so they lack that pure number 9 without Lukaku.
Yep.
I think they showed it on Match of the Day on Saturday here. 12 goals Chelsea defenders have scored. The midfielders have scored.
That's
about,
bonkers.
and the forwards have scored about 2. So it's all completely
crazy.
in reverse.
Yeah, that's bonkers.
But it's Thomas Tuchel getting what Thomas Tuchel wants from his wing backs.
The sack eventually, the sack and a big payoff.
Well, I think that we do need to acknowledge that there is that sort of Damocles that is Thomas Tuchel's dark side that is perpetually hanging, and it's going to pop up, and you just don't know when it is.
Yeah,
I don't know. You know what? Honestly, Mike, I don't know about that, right? Because the things that got him in trouble at PSG were like him changing Marquinhos to doing things that he wasn't natural.
Why did he do that?
I mean, I think that he felt that in that position.
He did it out of spite. He even admitted, like, he didn't get the defensive midfielder that he wanted, so he started playing people out of position just to do it. He knew what he was doing. And that was eventually, like, they just could not deal with. something's not going to go his way. And that's always been the thing with Thomas Tuchel, is he has a little bit of an oppositional defiance disorder. He has a problem with authority, right? Eventually, and Roman Abramovich is like the most authoritative owner that you could possibly imagine. There is going to come a point in time, and we don't know when it's going to come. It could come as early as January, right? It could come next week when Roman Abramovich, when he sets up to play a game and he doesn't like it, and Roman Abramovich wants something to happen, and and Tuchel just kind of. I
don't know. You know what? Like, I obviously can't speak to what Roman Abramovich wants or thinks ever at any point. But, like, I think that what he's getting out of Thomas Tuchel right now is a stable coach who's continually winning games. I mean, he's doing things like playing Trevoh Chalobah in the back and sort of utilizing him almost as like a third and sneaky number 8. And I think that that's the way that he wants to play football. I think that the Paris, he just wasn't in the right situation there. I mean, we'll see. We shall see. But right now they're winning. And why upset the apple cart right now? He doesn't need to. I mean,
he didn't need to at Dortmund, but he did.
Well, I mean, let's bring Rob back in and talk about how many championships Dortmund won, right? It's different when you're winning. And they're winning right now. And let's see, because the second half of the season is when the cups start to come out, and we'll see how it goes then. But for right now, we're in a great situation. It feels like we have depth everywhere. It feels like they're playing the way they want to. And I just can't complain.
Yeah, Rob chimed back in. He said he got sacked after winning the cup, mostly because he and the front office didn't get along. I understand why. That has to do with the bus shooting and him feeling like that ownership didn't back him as much as he felt like, and should have pressed harder not for the game not to be played. But he also was very, 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 very vocal in his attacks on ownership. And in both cases where he's gotten fired, it has been a direct result of very vocal confrontations with ownership who do something that he disagrees with, whether he's in the right or in the wrong.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, Conte has been heavily rumored for the Tottenham job, right? Antonio Conte is my second favorite Chelsea manager for as long as I've been watching them, because we don't get them for more than a year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had, and of course, number one is he who shall not be named by us, Man U or Tottenham, but
or Graham Potter.
Or Graham Potter. We're going to move on. We're going to move
Graham
on.
Potter's got a great beard, and his team just has returned to its ways of drawing. And it would be wonderful if they got relegated this year after they were in the top 4 through the first 2 months. I mean, that's just the most Brighton way to play football, really.
Or be Spurs and have manager of the month in August and fire him in October. That's even better.
Yeah.
Even more
that would be the most Premier League thing that ever happened. All right, Mike, give us a quick update on the lower leagues so that we can start. Give us a medium-sized one. We got about 9 minutes before we got to start talking. Before I would like to start talking about some MLS end of the season type stuff. So, what's going on? What should we pay attention to?
Sure. First thing I want to, I just want to preemptively criticize Sean. Sean, your team gets to your team gets to be the big villain in the Carabao Cup, because there is one remaining lower league team, and they are Sunderland. And you drew a League One side at home in the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup. Sean, how's it going to feel to you to ruin the dreams of those Northerners who have been beaten down for so long?
Oh, I'll love it, because I would imagine that in the dressing room they'll be playing the Sunderland Till I Die Amazon, because Arsenal are being filmed this year in the Amazon series. And I will be going as well. So I'll be looking forward to that. Sunderland do have a little place in my heart as well, because if you remember their FA Cup victory in 1971, I want to say, when they beat Leeds 1-0, they had a Montgomery in goal that day. So there we go. That's my family claim to fame. And we've got Danny May to thank, who did the draw and pulled us out of the hat first. So thank you, Danny May, as well. Yeah. So looking forward to getting to the semi-finals, where we will try and avoid you and hopefully get West Ham, who will have beaten Tottenham by then.
Yeah, but say what you want about Sunderland, though. Don't forget, they got thumped 5-1 over the weekend by Rotherham, and 3 of those goals were scored before the red card occurred. So I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe
Rotherham are on fire,
too much. Maybe they put too much in the last League Cup game, because now they're sitting. Granted, they still have 2 games in hand, but they're you're now 5 points out. You're 5 points off. So if you don't want to have to hold serve by winning everything to get back in your spot, if you want to get automatic promotion, you're sitting in 5th now.
No,
Not a good thing. Come on, Sunderland. You can't go out like that.
I mentioned it last time. It's a shame the balls fell where they did, because a quarterfinal game at the Stadium of Light would have been everything that they need.
Oh, it would have been fantastic. It would have been wonderful.
Yeah, they would have filled the stadium for the first time in years.
Mm-hmm.
But alas, the heels prevail. Sometimes the better team just wins. I did want to bring up what I thought was the game of the week last week in the championship, which was West Brom versus Fulham. It was 2 versus 3.
Mm-hmm.
Fulham just absolutely clobbered West Brom.
Absolutely thumped them.
Looked way better than they were. And West Brom, by the way, their away uniforms look a lot less lower league than their uniforms did last year when they were in the Premier League. I don't know if they weren't anticipating getting promoted, but they look like dignified now. But yeah, no, West Brom just wasn't out there to compete. We got a hat trick by Alexander Mitrovic. Alexander Mitrovic is the top scorer in the entire English pyramid.
Yeah, he's sitting on
right
18.
Now.
He's sitting on 18.
18 goals.
18. Yeah. He can't stop.
15 games.
He can't
18.
stop. I mean, he needs to look, if Fulham get promoted, he needs to just say, listen, sell me to the next best championship side, because I can't stop scoring in that league.
Well, I don't know. Norwich already have Timo Pukki, so I don't know if that's going to work out. But
that's true.
But Alexander Mitrovic, he was on fire 2 years ago when Fulham were in the championship.
Mm-hmm.
This year he's on pace to absolutely obliterate the championship goal record.
Well, he's on pace for over 50 goals.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy can't stop scoring.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I think he takes advantage of the fact that he's a large footballer.
Right.
And it's probably easier to body and bully a bit more in the championship than it is in the Premier League.
Sure.
But it's not saying that there's some big center halves to play in this championship. So I think it's totally, I think we should continue to give him his props for what he's been doing, because it is pretty impressive how he's been scoring the way he has. But to get a hat trick against another upper echelon side in the championship, it should definitely be applauded.
Yeah. Yep. Not much going on in the leagues below that. League 2, League 1, they're drifting. Plymouth Argyle continues to be resilient at the top of League 1. Again, we talked about it. Sunderland have 2 games in hand. A lot of the other teams have 1.
Mm-hmm.
But it's another week it's the 4th week in a row that we're talking about Plymouth Argyle on top.
Mm-hmm. And look what happened to Accrington Stanley. They're back to making the advertisement be something for real again. Back in 10th place.
I mean, Accrington Stanley are right now, they're only 4 points off the playoff race, but yes, they've come down. But in terms of reversing that, when we talk about League Two, last year's playoff losers, Newport County, had a rough go to start the season, but they're back up to 8th. Their last 5 games, they're unbeaten. They've won their last 2. They're coming on pretty strong. And remember, it's the top 7 in League Two, they are tied with the 6th and 7th place teams at 23 points. And they have a world of potential. They gave Tottenham a hard time last year in the FA Cup. And they were the best playoff final away from getting promoted to League One last year. I think the beginning of their season this year showed that maybe it was better that they didn't end up in League One, but they are one of the few teams in the English league pyramid down to the first 4 levels that have been founded within the last 30 years. So
Hey, London Sean, what's up with your boys Exeter in 4th in League Two?
Well, I was waiting for a mention from our League 1 and 2 correspondents to mention the fact that the local team are doing really, really, really well. Unfortunately, Alfie has not yet made the first team squad this year, because we're going to have a competition a bit later on. I'm going to get a signed shirt from Alfie Pond, the next superstar, with the Exeter shirt. But yeah, Exeter are going to be there. We're going to be there this year, and hopefully not have to go through the playoffs, because our record in the playoffs is terrible. So we need one of those 3 automatic places, basically.
Sean, let me ask you: if Exeter are in a playoff final at Wembley, are you going?
Yeah, I went to the one 5 years ago, I think it is. But then most of where I live, everyone went. I think Exeter get an average crowd of 6,000, but we took 38,000 to Wembley for the playoff
wow.
final.
That's good.
Yeah, exactly. So I think everyone was finding their grandma's cousins. Yeah, come on, let's go to Wembley. Exeter there. Yeah, let's go. Fantastic. And talking about attendances, and I know I'm digressing because I'm in the middle of your report, Mike, but before we finish, did anyone see what the Barcelona attendance was at the weekend? Do we know what the capacity in the stadium is? Do we know what the capacity?
The capacity is 99,000 at Camp Nou. It's 99,000.
And attendance was, I think, 38.
32,000, 32,500 against Atlanta.
Espanol pull better than that, man.
We talked about the fact that Ron Koeman's out.
It's Levante.
And the Barca fans are basically voting with their feet, right? And I
was making the point that Exeter.
Before we go, I just
final that people could be asked to go and watch Barcelona play Levante.
Yeah, so as many people went to watch Barca play Levante as went to watch Exeter. More people went to see Exeter in Wembley than so. Exeter are officially now a better draw than Barcelona.
Exactly.
Can I just say one last thing before we move on from the lower league report? As our good friend Byron Robb mentioned, ESPN Plus is becoming a portal. ESPN Plus's championship games this Wednesday, the game of the week, in my opinion, in the lower leagues. You have Blackburn Rovers versus Fulham. That not only features 2 promotion playoff level teams, but it also features the number 1 versus the number 2 scorer. As great as Alexander Mitrovic has been, Blackburn have a guy named Ben Brereton, who's also put in 12 goals already, which they've played more games, but the top scorer in the Premier League is Mo Salah at 10. Ben Brereton is owned outright by Blackburn. He's not on loan. Blackburn are sitting in 7th now, right under the playoff leagues. He's the kind of guy who you want to look out for, that if Blackburn don't get to the Premier League, that teams will come calling. He's only 22 years old.
He had a
so,
great story too about how he got the call up for Chile. That was really cool.
yeah.
Was he at Forest?
Yes, he was.
Oh, yes,
at
he
Forest.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he played in the team that when Forest beat us in the cup, didn't he?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah.
And it's great to hear that Blackburn have had some financial difficulties and some other difficulties, and it's good to see them back in contention. I don't want to get them mixed up with Bolton, who basically folded, but Blackburn have had their fair share of difficulties, and it's good to see them back in and amongst the contention. I did love it when Blackburn were in the league. They are the last team outside of what we would now recognize as the Big Five to win a Premier League title.
They are the only Premier League champions to be in a lower level league.
Yes, they are the only Premier League champions to then get relegated.
They had a pretty good guy. His name was Shearer. I don't know.
Yeah. At that point,
He was all right.
Yeah, I think he turned out to be pretty decent.
Right.
So we're going to spend the last little bit of time that we have together. We're going to welcome back in Byron Robb and see if he did not make a jersey change. I was waiting to see if he was going to make a jersey change.
This is Inter Miami, by the way.
Yeah, I thought so. But I'm surprised that you went with Inter Miami, considering the fact that the Neville experiment at Inter Miami has been what can only be classified as a failure, as we're moving on to wrapping up the MLS season as we get into the last, let's call it round and a half of fixtures. There's some midweek games this week as we set up what MLS likes to call Decision Day. Now, first, a big group apology to London, Sean. When we did our MLS preview, also known as MLS speed dating for Sean Montgomery, we somehow convinced him to pick Toronto FC, who have absolutely sucked this year. Now, in our defense, Sean, we presented you with options. You chose them.
Present me with options. You did present me with options, I won't go over the reasons that attracted me towards Toronto. One of the facts is they're in Canada, and we know what the laws are over there. But I now know what it feels like to be a Spurs fan.
Yes. We now recognize how much Sebastian Giovinco meant to Toronto FC. Jose Altidore is capable of leading a line still in MLS when he's healthy, which now I think over the course of the last 3 years, I think he may have missed way more games than he has played. So we apologize for that. The Neville experiment and Beckham hiring his buddy, Rob, hasn't gone exactly as planned.
Nope. It's been awful. It's awful. There's no chemistry. They've been a massive disappointment. They're out of their depth. I'm sorry. It's like you could be good in something, but like once you come to MLS, it's a whole different world. You have to navigate all these different waters, and it doesn't help the fact that they got slapped in the hand when they try to bring in a fourth designated player, and they had to buy down someone's contract. They lost, like they got fined heavily, and it's a whole big problem. But just going back to the football real quick, they're just top heavy. The problem is they have all these players, and then they have no quality role players like underneath them. I mean, like the very fact that Breck Shea is still playing, he playing major minutes for Inter Miami, it's a problem. I mean, he's just a terrible footballer. I'm sorry. And
he was supposed to be a U.S. First teamer.
He had it. We've talked about this with a lot of other players, though. I mean, he's one of those guys who hit a peak in his early 20s, and then just never. The rest of football caught up with him. I was thinking about it was you, Rob, who earlier today when we were just chatting amongst ourselves about Nuno getting fired, brought up on Adama Traore. And, he's kind of suffering from the same thing where, he's hit a part of his development where I think we now know what he's going to be. He's just a really big guy who wears tight shorts, who runs real fast, right? There's a place for that on a team, and a lot of guys would love that. A lot of managers would love to have him, but you see, without the likes of Jota and Jimenez at Wolves, he can't score goals and he can't create assists. And if you're a winger, that's kind of the only thing you're there to do. So yeah, I'm gonna need you to figure it out, buddy. But the same sort of thing kind of happened to Rex Shea, especially after he made that move to Sunderland, and he just never was able to figure it out. But he goes into that whole entire lost generation, that generation that was supposed to take us to the last World Cup and didn't, right? All of them now are in their late 20s, early 30s, and the road is just littered. If you want to, I know he's still on the team, and he's still a solid MLS player, but you put Giassi Zardes in there, he's another one who just runs real quick. I think the difference is that Greg Berhalter trusts him, and he has the ability to put in a goal when they need him. But yeah, Inter Miami, I think David Beckham has gotten a very interesting introduction to owning a sporting franchise in America and the limitations that come with building a team in MLS, where you just can't go out and buy whoever you want to get good. You have to play within the salary cap rules, and you have to figure out a way to build a team.
He doesn't care. He's just got paid 150 million to be the face of the next World Cup, does he?
Well, I mean, yeah, but if he wants his team to be good, he's going to have to figure it out.
True.
Yeah, the thing with MLS is like, they just wanted to say like, oh, we're Miami, right? So we want to attract all these players. We want to be like the best. We want to be the attraction. If you are a Latin American player, and you want to play in America for whatever reason, we are the destination, right? And what they should be is, they should be what Atlanta United was doing. Is they want to be, Atlanta United is a stepping stone for all those players. If you're from Central America or South America and you want to make it big in Europe, but you want a stepping stone, Atlanta United is your place to go. So obviously you got Almiron, who's now in Newcastle. He was there. Ezekiel Barco, who's now currently in Atlanta United, still finally finding his way into the league and getting, developing like we all thought he would. He's going to potentially make that move next year. Joseph Martinez probably could have made the move a couple years ago. He's scoring a ton of goals over Atlanta United, and he plays for the Venezuelan national team. But he loves Atlanta. He has a connection to the city like no other, and that's how you build a team when you have money. What Inter Miami were trying to do is, we're just trying to put names on a marquee and just mishmash them and hope it works out. And that doesn't build a team at all. The first season obviously is a COVID season, but they found the players before they found the manager. Right now, that manager got sacked. Phil Neville got brought in, but I don't know him to run a club football, let alone MLS with all its intricacies. So this was bound for failure, and they're not even in their own stadium yet. I mean, they're technically at Fort Lauderdale, but it's going to be a few years until they're in Miami. So you're not really attracting anybody because you're not going to play in Miami. You're going to play at Fort Lauderdale, which is a totally different market. So
yeah, and 45 minutes north.
Yeah.
Actually,
yeah.
Fort Lauderdale, Miami couldn't be more different. They really couldn't. Yeah.
I mean, but you bring up a good point.
No, I mean, but that's he's talking about that model, right? And then there's the other model in the MLS, the model that sort of the union. have adopted, and that's make your academy amazing. I mean, you had Paxton Aronson, who's 17, brother of Brandon Aronson, who went over to Salzburg to play. They say he's better. The Philadelphia Union Academy is churning out players that are making European teams. So go young, bring them in, you utilize them until they get good enough to go over to Europe throughout your own ranks. I mean, the Union are blessed with a very specific geographic area that allows them to attract young talent. They have a media market of like almost 7 million people, out of whom you're going to find 2 or 3 kids every year. But that's, you know what, you utilize your advantage, you take it. The Union's academy players are contributors and have been for the last 2 or 3 years, and they're in a solid second place in the Eastern Conference. So,
well, they're in a solid second place in the Eastern Conference until this weekend. I would point out that Nashville has a home game against Red Bulls, while Philly has to travel up to Yankee Stadium to play. Yankee Stadium being a tough place with a great home field advantage. I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe slide down to third, but I can't see the Union going.
But you know what? Honestly, I like that. I'd rather not. The Red Bulls are actually the Philadelphia Union's traditional rival, and if the season ended today, that's who they'd play in the first round of the playoffs. I'd rather see them play Atlanta United. They've owned them all year. It wouldn't be a major demotion, right? It would almost be better.
What I do want to bring up is that we have definitely seen, first and foremost, and both of you have touched on this in your own way, that the most successful teams now in MLS are not the ones who go out and buy the high-priced European has-beens, right? You know, the teams that have the best designated players and make the most use of the designated player rule to the best extent have been ones who actually scouted well, right? If I asked you to name the designated players on the New England Revolution, most of us wouldn't know who those guys were. And not only that, we wouldn't have known where they came from, right? Rob brought up Atlanta United, who have done a fantastic, or Atlanta United has done a fantastic job of scouting, particularly South American leagues, and Argentina, especially getting players up from there into Atlanta United, turning them, and as you said, setting up a pathway and saying, hey, we're going to go down. And Arthur Blank said to Carlos Bocanegra, build me a team. Bocanegra said, I'm going to go and I'm going to bring up a lot of young South American players. What I'm going to do is make us so that we are a club that gives you a pathway to Europe. On the other side, you have the Union, who have, for kids in the region, the Delaware Valley region, which has produced its fair number of really solid soccer players, given...
Honestly, you can, if he was alive at the time, like Christian Pulisic might have gone through that academy. I would think that Hershey, Pennsylvania would be in their influence area.
Yeah, it always was. And what they have been able to do now is what Stead, you and I have been screaming for years, which is to say to kids, if you want to play there, we will give you a very clearly defined path forward. You make our academy, you work your way up through the ranks, you're going to get game time, you play a season or two, we'll sell you on. And just look at Brendan Aronson and Mark McKenzie, right? And to that credit, I would like, to that point, I would like to give the MLS and the MLS owners a lot of credit for focusing on scouting, bringing up some of these players from lower leagues. Like they've done so much better scouting players who can come in and actually be effective players in MLS. Some at the end of their careers who will fit under the salary cap but can make positive contributions. Some who are young players. I'm looking at the leading scorer, Adam Buska, for the New England Revolution, who's a 25-year-old Polish kid who just got his first call up for Poland. You know, he's been knocking them in, along with Gustavo Bo, who is in his 30s. I wouldn't have known who this guy was until he showed up. Now, that also proves the point that Bruce Arena is probably just about the best manager in MLS history. Like, if there's one thing that man knows how to do, it's win an MLS.
Mm-hmm.
He's an MLS Hall of Famer all the way.
They might as well name an award after him.
Yeah, I think they should.
It'll be his Manager
Award
of the Year award.
Yeah, the managerial award just needs to be the Bruce Arena Manager of the Year award, and it will be after he retires, because if there's anything that he knows how to do, it's win an MLS. And right now, he has New England Revolution. They got off to a hot start. They rode a stingy defense. Matt Turner developed into probably the best right now goalkeeping option that we have in the United States. And they've ridden that to an MLS record, 73 points at the moment. It could go as high as 76. Mike, you brought up the fact that the Union, they got off to a weird start. They did not go out and do a like-for-like replacement with either McKenzie or Brendan Aronson. They promoted Paxton. They bought some defenders, but they've developed, they had their CONCACAF Champions League exploits, which ended at the semifinal with the defeat to Club America, but they've gotten back on track. They're solidly in the top three. They will most likely host a home playoff game this year. Rob, I know you hate to admit that new NYCFC has been good, but this is a team that, unlike previous iterations of NYCFC, actually doesn't have a whole lot of big names on it.
No, right? They don't. But they're all playing well. I mean, except when they play, New York Red Bulls, because New York is red. But no, they've been playing well overall all season. I mean, they drop a point here and there, and they go on a skid, in the middle of the season, but they hung in there, and they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs. And like you said before, they're not the Lampards here, they're not the Pirlos here. There's quality South American players on here, so who they're sort of borrowing a little bit of that model where we're going to bring in South American players and provide a stepping stone, to Europe, and it's gone well. They've shocked me. I didn't think they'll be this good. I thought they'd be barely sniffing the playoffs, but using that baseball field that they call a home, then they've been doing well. And I just hope they lose, because I cannot stand them.
On the flip side, over in the West, it looks like we could be, as I'm bringing them up, in the Western Conference standings.
Well, the Seattle Sounders, they're good. They're so good. I mean, in the sad thing is, I think their top scorer, Raul Ruiz-Diaz, who the Peruvian international, who for some reason cannot find a net when he's wearing the red sash, but when he's wearing emerald green, he lights out.
This is basically the same Seattle Sounders team that has been around for the last couple of years at or near the top. We've seen Sporting KC has gone with them neck and neck. Seattle's playing LA Galaxy right now. That game is tied. With a win would do well for Seattle to secure home field advantage throughout the Western Conference playoffs. And if they get home field advantage throughout the Western Conference playoffs, that's a huge advantage. Number one, outside of Atlanta, they have the second biggest stadium in all of MLS. Number two, that means that you're going to have to go up to Seattle. You're going to have to play in that stadium. You're going to have to play in that weather, and you're going to have to play on that funky turf, right? I think teams would. I don't think anybody wants to have to go up to there and play. But we are also looking at the very real possibility that there could be no LA teams in the NFL, in the MLS playoffs this year. LA Galaxy are just barely hanging on in sixth place. And Real Salt Lake are only behind them by 2 places. And LAFC right now are on the outside looking in. How weird would it be to see MLS playoffs with no teams from LA in it this year?
It's so weird. It'd be so weird because the Galaxy were counting on Chicharito to, really do something for them this season. And he started off hot, and then he got hurt for a while, and they just never really recovered. And then LAFC, for all the money they spend and for all, the ruckus they make about their beautiful stadium and Will Ferrell being the owner and how they wear fatigues when they go visit the Galaxy in Carson, like they're an army. They've been a massive disappointment. I mean, almost on the level as Inter Miami, simply because they have quality players, they have a really good coach, they just have nothing to show for it. And it's gonna be really weird not seeing any of them in the playoffs because they both have good players.
Yeah, it's a very real possibility. Sean, what's your point, question, comment, concern?
Just the comment. I remember when you guys were all explaining to me how the MLS works, and I think the time we did that show, it was coming towards the end of last season. Maybe I shouldn't be too depressed.
No, we did it at the beginning. We did it at the beginning of this season.
This season, sorry. So maybe I shouldn't be too depressed because Toronto finished 13th. So does that mean they've made the playoffs?
No.
Because last season, people that were finishing like 12th were making the playoffs. I just said, why didn't everyone just get into the playoffs?
Basically, it would be easier for us to focus on the less than half of the league that doesn't make the playoffs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
so 13th isn't it good? No?
No, I mean, that doesn't mean that you make the playoffs. Considering the fact that this year there are 27 teams, of which 14 of them will make the playoffs, but it's top 7 teams in each league. So you actually have a better, statistically, you would say you have a better shot of making the playoffs than you don't. Of course, we know that also relies on what you put on the field and how well you play. But yeah, there are actually, once again, we are the land of participation trophies. More than half of the MLS will make the playoffs and get at least one playoff game before they go home.
Just real quick, Mike, I just want to give a special shout to the Union, because the Union had done really well. They won a supporter shield last season, and they have told all their fans saying, look, this is unique, right? We expect to sell these players and let them move on. They've done that. They scattered well for their, the other players that are not from their academy, and they continue to do well, which is the total opposite of what FC Dallas, who people have said that their academy is this pristine academy. They had this beautiful partnership with Bayern. Ricardo Pepi is going to leave on a big move to some league over in Europe, but they stink at surrounding their academy players with anybody useful. So the Union give my respects, even though their stadium is in the middle of a chemical plant.
Yes, we know that.
There's only a very slight possibility that will explode and kill the entire Union fandom. I mean, it's a very remote possibility. Okay,
it's a power plant, and yes, the river is polluted, but as long as it's blowing downwind, you don't smell it.
Well, there is also the oil refinery just next door in what is that, Chad's Ford?
Yeah.
I mean,
and you do have to occasionally park at the casino, which is right behind the prison.
By the way, yes, going to see a Philadelphia Union game, it is casino, prison, like long space of nothing And then there's a bridge in the Union
Oh,
Station.
no, but there's also the Northrop Grumman plant that takes up
True.
that
Oh,
long
well,
stretch.
yeah, that is there
Yes.
too. Yeah.
You should be twinned with Hull City, who are also in the middle of a chemical plant. Yeah.
The worst part about this is we're not exaggerating too much.
No, we're not.
We're really not exaggerating that much about what it is like. It is an absolutely beautiful stadium. It probably needs some renovations, and from the looks of it, it definitely needs a coat of paint. And they could stand to go out and replace some of the seats. Not that they're ever going to replace the seats in the River End and the Sons of Ben section, because why would you replace something that nobody ever sits in?
It's a good point.
They're there for show because we have to have all-seater stadiums, but then you're commanded to stand anyway. Anyway, though, we have officially run out of time. We will do a more extensive MLS roundup next week, as we know the 14 teams that will be in, and we'll be able to recap the first couple of rounds.
Can I just say one thing that I don't think we did enough of? Respect. I'm going to put respect on the name of Sporting KC. Like they went into the day leading the Western Conference. First of all, I think Kansas City should be the host of the 2026 World Cup final. I will stake my marker on that. But they're doing it in a completely different way than we talked about. Their top scorer, Daniel Saloy, is from Hungary. They brought him up through the academy. I think finding players that are sort of cast-offs to European academies is another.
That's what we talked about.
Yeah,
we talked about a little bit about that with New England, but I think the thing that we all agree on is what they have done in the most successful teams in MLS, with the possible exception of Seattle, who have basically just had this team together for 5 years. Nobody's left, and they're going to age out if they don't make any. But the best teams are good because of the way that they scout and the way that they develop. And, we have said for a while that we thought MLS would be best served as becoming a developmental league, and that is the direction that it is turning. And the sooner that we can accept that and enjoy what we're seeing, and the possibility that we're going to see guys like Adam Buska scoring for Poland, Brandon Aronson becoming an effective player for
the
U.S. men's national team, Rui Diaz play for Peru, even though he can't put the ball in the back of the net when he plays his national, but seeing more of these guys in international tournaments, that's what's good for them.
And just for Sean's knowledge, like the Pacific Northwest teams, Vancouver, Seattle, Portland, they always sell out their games. They're always, and good on them. They've got good crowds, but they're also kind of annoying in that way,
So we'll get back to that next week. So, man, it was fun. That 2 hours went by fast as always. Next week, we're going to do a little bit more MLS and wrap up some of the big news as we head off into the doldrums, also known as the international break. But that's all right. We're looking up some good hijinks to do when we don't have club football, because otherwise we'd all just sit here, stare at each other and twiddle our thumbs and say, what will we talk about? Because who really cares?
Hey, I gotta say, ESPN shows League One and League Two during international breaks, so it's a bonanza for me.
Mike, we're going to need you. All right. I want to send a big shout out to Larry, the City fan, Larry, the insurance guy, for coming on, giving us his update on City. Thanks to Los for coming on and telling us the latest on the Tottenham perspective on the firing of Uncle Nuno. Instead, I guess really Uncle Nuno really can get back to driving that bus.
Before we leave, can I just congratulate Chelsea Mike on a quite extraordinary career, Mike. Hats off. So not only did you manage the Sex Pistols in the 70s and did a fantastic job doing that, I also thought you played really well against Leeds on Sunday. I didn't know that you had that centre forward play in you. Was that
Okay.
you?
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean,
Mhm.
our players are where they are. They don't necessarily need to be at Cobham training every week.
Okay. A big a big thanks to Byron Robb for coming on and joining us. Chelsea Mike for the lower league report. As always, appreciation goes out to London Sean for waking up at a crazy hour of the morning. You really are bananas, sir.
Mhm.
And
Very good. I got that one. Got that one.
yes, I know it's early for you, so
I know,
it might the pickup might be a little bit slow.
Yeah.
And my dear friend and partner in all things podcast related, Stead, for making sure that all the trains run on time. Y'all don't understand the work that he does on the back end of this. Once again, for the cast of the Too Many Guys Soccer Show, I'm Mike. We did all right this week. We'll try and do better next week.